All of my life I have been wearing them, the hand-me-downs, the pants too long. Arms of sweaters stretched longer than mine, sleeves of shirts I rolled up like newspapers, those shoulders that would never stay in place, always remembering, we are here to fit in. And the very shoes that narrowed on my feet I gave away or traded up for other people's souls. I have thought somewhere there must be men whose socks don't shrink, whose buttons stay put, whose shirts never wear out at the elbows. I paid for what other people gave away. All of my life I wanted to stand tall, but as I grew up my clothes kept wearing out, when in my child's heart I only wanted the comfort of corduroy, a face that didn't need ironing, a crease that would stay put. These labels I hoped wouldn't rub off. By Michael McGee. Do you ever feel like you're trying to change yourself to fit a mould that wasn't made for you? You know, we often squeeze ourselves into moulds that others were brave enough to make. At first, these moulds might seem gently rebellious, they might seem different, but over time they harden into stifling calls for conformity. There's a paradox here. Moulds are often created by people who found freedom in discovering themselves. And in sharing that discovery, they leave behind this template, something intended to help others. But instead of guiding, it can actually pressure people into following footsteps that aren't their own. I first read this poem by Michael McGee in a Haven Cotter discussion where we were talking about the phrase well worn. And one idea that really stayed with me was this, that the same garment can look entirely different on two people. On one it might look and seem kind of natural and effortless, and on another it feels alien. It seems like it doesn't quite fit. And I don't think we need to be fashion experts, I'm not, to sense when someone's outfit clashes with who they are, their inner rhythm. And I think we've probably all felt that ourselves as well, that gnawing sense that we are living a life that we haven't fully chosen, maybe conforming to somebody else's ideals and expectations. And in this sense, fitting isn't about measurements, it's about feeling. No one else can judge whether or not our clothes or our lives truly fit us or suit us. Maybe we love a baggy existence, which is loose and forgiving, or perhaps we prefer a tighter fit where every contour is visible and unapologetic. The question isn't the style, it's really the why beneath it. Are we wearing this because it aligns with who we are when no one's watching, or because we've grown addicted to the stares, the approval when we look the part, even as we feel emptier beneath the fabric? On that note, like when we tie ourselves to things like credentials and reputation or other people's nods of respect and approval, we risk losing touch with ourselves. We might look like we fit in, but the cost is a quiet erosion of that kind of depth of being. We do it to impress them, not to impress ourselves. And none of this is to say that life should always feel comfortable. It doesn't, it won't, it can't. That's one of my gripes with the language around sort of finding your purpose and that kind of thing, which often implies or suggests that a perfect outfit is out there. Once it's discovered, it will erase all sense of contradiction and uncertainty and lack. And this is the fuel that the self-help industry runs on, this perpetual quest for a mirage on the horizon. But actually wearing the clothes that fit us is about embracing all of that stuff, embracing the contradiction, the lack, the uncertainty. And we're also not dismissing hand-me-downs, borrowed ideas, traditions, influences. These are all vital parts of life. They shape us. They give us a sense of anchored belonging in the through line of humanity. I read this article earlier about a clothes library in Shropshire where people can donate and borrow pre-loved garments. Our clothes carry a story, and I think that's what really came to mind for me as I was reading this, a history. And this library invites borrowers to try them on, to add our own chapters, and then pass them back and onwards for others. This is how, our labels, our identities are all shared and built on too. We might wear certain values, beliefs, roles for a stretch of life, and then let them return to the collective shelf when they no longer fit or when they've done what they needed to do. And there's joy in that. No single body wears the same fabric the same way. No single life interprets the same idea identically. You know, there's nothing new under the sun, but there are new ways of wearing things. But this only works if we're allowed to grow with them, you know, weaving in the threads of our own sensitivities, creativity, and values. And if we can't do that, those borrowed layers smother rather than sustain and inspire us. You know, sometimes wearing someone else's clothes actually gives us a glimpse of new possibilities, but there's a difference here. We make choices to collaborate with these moulds, not to cram ourselves into them. We're not forcing our self-concept, identity, or values into an image that doesn't belong to us and to which we don't belong. With the choices we tend to make, the priorities we set, and the life that we lead given to us without question. Did we see them on someone else and assume they would fit, assume they're the right thing to wear, only to discover that actually in trying to put ourselves into them, we bend ourselves out of shape? Do you ever feel like you're wearing someone else's clothes?